Let us know what is diabetes. Next to Dr. Lawrence, we have Nurse Nydia Wharton-Whyte. I think I have the name correct. And she's one of our senior nurses working at the Outpatients Department of the Joseph N. France General Hospital. And her work entails and involves interacting with persons who suffer one of the complications of diabetes, that is to say, kidney issues, kidney problems. So she will give us an idea what does that look like when her turn comes around. Then on my immediate right, we have my big friend, Mr. Yogi Orlando Sutton. Most people just know him as Yogi. I only found out that he's Orlando Sutton very recently, but I knew him as Yogi for many moons. And he will give the practical perspective. What is diabetes all about? What do you feel? What do you witness? What do you know that could have been happening to you, which you may or may not have taken on board seriously? I am your host, Reginald O'Loughlin, and I will be leading the discussion. We have tonight also a panel of guests in our audience, in our studio audience. It is our hope that the conversation that we are having here will be interactive, and members of our audience will be able to ask questions, make suggestions and recommendations. Simultaneously, those of you who would be looking at our virtual media platforms, YouTube, which I will give shortly, Facebook, and those who do the good old WhatsApp, which simpler minds like mine find it much easier to deal with. We would accept suggestions and recommendations coming that route. So to start the ball off rolling, since we're talking about diabetes, we must know what is diabetes. So Dr. Lawrence, give us an idea in very layman's terms. What is this diabetes all about?
So today, yes, we're talking about diabetes, mellitus, the other types of diabetes. So we're talking about diabetes mellitus. Diabetes mellitus is that circumstance, that a physical situation where the person is unable to control their blood sugar, blood glucose. So yes, we eat the sugar in whatever versions and drink it in whatever versions. And what's supposed to happen is that our body produces insulin to control. The appropriate amount of insulin is delivered into the bloodstream to bring the sugar down, absorbing it and removing it from the bloodstream. Diabetes is where that individual, that person, child, woman, man, is unable to control their own blood sugar. So the sugar, they eat it, they drink it, it's involved, it goes into the bloodstream, and they're not able to remove. They don't produce enough insulin, or they don't produce any insulin, or they have insulin, but it is just not effective. The end result is sugar remains in the bloodstream, and high blood sugar is diabetes mellitus, and that's the one that can attack organs. So it's about being unable to control your blood sugar.
Okay, that is quite a detailed explanation, and I'm sure those who were not sugar enlightened before would now be more aware as to what this diabetes mellitus or mellitus is all about. And we, from our statistics that the St. Kitts Diabetes Association has been compiling, we have recognized and realized that we are looking at probably in excess of 3,000 persons living with diabetes in St. Kitts. And by the way, we are the St. Kitts Diabetes Association. The Nevis arm, they have managed their own numbers, their own affairs in relation to diabetes. So we have a St. Kitts Diabetes Association, and our estimate is that we are looking at in excess of 3,000 persons with this medical condition. Now, that's everybody, because we looked at those who attend the clinics. Those numbers are easier to get, and we will discuss that later. The numbers are easy to get in in the government clinics. The last time I had access to the numbers for 2020, I think it was, there were 1,700 diabetics registered at the 12 government health centers in St. Kitts. But quite a number of persons do not attend government clinics. More specifically, the men tend to, for whatever reason, and I guess my good friend Yogi will give me a little clarification on that when his turn comes, as to why men prefer not to attend the clinics. The free clinics, believe it or not, they're gratis. You know, you don't have to find any lots of change to attend them. But nonetheless, that is what the numbers looks like. Now, if we are talking about diabetes being a condition with blood sugar levels being higher than normal, Dr. Lawrence, what sort of numbers can we look at as being normal and what is abnormal? When would one know that their sugar is bad?
So there are two sugar readings, and then there's another one. So we like to look at a person's fasting blood sugar, which is the sugar in their bloodstream before they eat anything or drink anything at all. And the fasting blood sugar, a normal fasting blood sugar, should be between 60 and 110 milligrams per deciliter, 60 to 110, normal. And the other time that we check a sugar reading that we can interpret could be 2 hours after a meal or random anytime after 2 hours. And that blood sugar reading should be like 140 or 160 milligrams per deciliter. So fasting and 2 hours after a meal. Those we can use to diagnose diabetes if they are higher than that, but most accurately to diagnose diabetes, there's a test called HbA1c. For short, we say your A1C. So the A1C looks at 4 months of management of blood sugar. How has your body been managing your blood sugar for 4 months? Because sometimes when we say we're going to do the fasting blood sugar or 2 hours, people can cheat. They know they're going to do the blood test tomorrow.
And we know they do cheat.
Yes, they know they're going to do the blood test tomorrow, so they live the pristine life the day before, such that the following day the sugar is superb.
I know they say they eat rabbit food the day before.
And they, of course, not living that way all the time. So the benefits of the A1C is to really get the best reflection of how this person really has been living, and that is to be less than 5.7%. And the diagnosis of diabetes is when that A1C is more than 6.5%. So those are the figures. The fasting to be 60 up to 110, a random or 140, and then the A1C should be less than 5.7, and for diagnosis it should be more than 6.5% or higher.
Okay, so those numbers for now will give us an idea as to what you can look for to make that diagnosis. And so one now has the diagnosis. He has his A1C, wherever it is, 10, 11, 12. He may have his fasting blood sugar, 180, 250, whatever it may be. Are there any specific symptoms that you can say those are suggestive of diabetes, or is it more in the realm of the diagnostics, or a happenstance visit to a health center that one finds out that they're diabetic? How is it? How does it work? So
any of the above, all of the above. So some persons with a HbA1c of 10 would swear they have no symptoms whatsoever. So we can't only use presence or absence of symptoms. But the classic symptoms that we tend to see, when you press them more and press them more, they say, yeah, I really notice I've been passing urine more often, you know. Yeah, I notice I've been a little bit more thirsty than usual, you know. Yeah, I notice I've been losing weight and I'm not trying to lose weight, you know. So passing or peeing more often than usual, increased thirst, losing weight despite not actively trying to lose weight. They might complain of blurred vision, and if they're not seeing, they want to be able to fine-tune their vision some more, but it's just blurred. They might also complain of infections, that they don't heal well, or in particular women, they can get vaginal yeast attacks frequently. So those are some of the things that would be symptoms that might antennae may go off, the light switch go on. Is this diabetes to the person that at the clinic they've gone to check and they complain of stuff like this? Then we should check their blood sugar.
Okay, so far we've had the definition of diabetes. We have the numbers which we can use to diagnose diabetes. And of course, we're going to look shortly at treatment modalities and things you can do to avoid. But I want to, at this moment, bring in my good friend Yogi. Yogi would give you his story and let us know what was his situation that brought about the diagnosis of diabetes. He could give us some information, that would help us, at least to help other persons, in future, so that they can, if anything, be found out early enough and can at least avoid some of the serious complications like kidney issues, which Nurse Nydia will enlighten us about a little later in relation to the numbers and the mood of the people when they attend the clinic at the Joseph and Friends General Hospital. So Yogi, what's the story?
Well, just like the doctor said, the urination was quite frequent. And, so I checked the doctor. Yes, guys don't check doctors as frequently as we should. Mm-hmm. But for real, I did. I went and checked, and the doctor told me I was borderline, something like borderline, he said. Borderline. So I kind of just cut back on sugary stuff and cut back on sugar all together. But I didn't realize eating had to have a lot to do with it too, because everything you eat turns into sugar sometimes, you guys have to help me a little, if I'm going wrong or what.
How long ago this would have been? How long you got that borderline notification?
My son is 14, maybe about 15 years.
15 years?
Yeah, about between 10 and 15. I think it was before my son was born, but yeah.
So you changed from the sugar thing,
yes,
but you continued eating, you continued pelting everything.
Yes, and the alcohol too, Mm-hmm. I mean, you used to meet me. Yeah. Splanet,
Yep.
We do a thing.
And, you letting me out on TV.
And, that was it. And I used to exercise, not often, but I used to do my thing. And I realized that the urination, that was the main thing for me. Mm-hmm. That was the main thing for me.
That's how you got initial diagnosis?
Yes.
So you say you made some changes?
Yes, I did. But they wasn't drastic enough. I didn't understand diabetes. I used to take care of my grandmother. She got diabetes when I was born. She was 50, she said. And she died at 94. And I took care of her all through the years. Lived with me, I took care of her. But I didn't understand the diet part of it. Diet and exercise is the most important things you have to do when it comes to diabetes.
And not only that, I suspect one of the things that could have impacted you or affected you is that you thought diabetes is for them. It ain't me.
That too. And stop me, if I'm wrong, tell me. When your blood sugar is 89, or it's 289, you don't feel any different.
So true.
You don't feel anything. It's not just, well, it's high, so it's you're gonna feel something, no, you don't feel any different.
When we have discussions at the St. Kitts Diabetes Association, one of the things that we often speak about is that we are sorry that diabetes doesn't have a particular something that can chokes you when the sugar goes high. So something is happening and you have to do something.
Yes,
It has to have that symptom that gives you that harsh reminder, that when you get it, hey, I have this thing, I have to do something about it.
Yes.
So I guess that's what you're talking about.
Yes.
You related a story at an event that we were at recently about your foot.
Yes.
Something you saw and you...
Yes.
Let's hear that story because I was impressed and amazed all at once with your story. Let us know exactly what happened.
Yes, well, everybody who knows me, they know I barbecue in Keon, on the side outside the Green Valley pub. And it was at a Friday morning I got up. I thought I had a...
How long ago this was? How many years ago?
2020.
That's 2 years ago?
Yeah.
Under COVID?
Yeah, yeah. Yes. It was maybe like in September-ish like. And I saw a boil on my second toe, my left toe. Just on instep like, you know. And I thought I got a centerpiece thing. Even...
You ever had a centerpiece thing before?
Never had a centerpiece thing before. So I didn't know what to look for. So Big Lights told me, look for two holes or something. I looked. There's a guy in the audience right now, Copperhead. I think I told him I got a centerpiece thing. He said, boy, you sure? So yeah, I thought so. Anyway, the Friday, barbecue. Saturday, went to get breakfast by a friend of mine down the road. And I felt like a burning sensation like by my knee. So I told her I felt like I played some football in my sleep and somebody tackled me or something. I just felt, you know. I said, no, something ain't right. The Monday, I went up the clinic and I got a paper to go get some blood tests. Because I was taking it serious, you know. I said, something ain't right. Anyway, went for the blood test on Monday. The Tuesday, I went back up the clinic again. They would look at my foot. They said, man, you look all right, you know. Nothing, it's just a boil. I said, okay. The Wednesday, I went to work. The Wednesday night, when I came home, take off my boots and everything, just the top of the boil, like it wasn't a little, not raw, but just a little bruise, like, you know. I said, okay. The Thursday, I went to the clinic again. I said, what? Look at this. The nurse said, listen, check your doctor or check the hospital. I said, okay. I called my doctor. Well, my doctor is Jew. And, you know, he was busy with the politics thing, I think, you know, so I didn't get him. I packed some clothes in a little bag, and I went straight to hospital. When I went, sat down, and they're checking me in the outpatients, a Spanish guy, I think he's a nurse. I don't know if he's a Spanish doctor, he's a doctor or a nurse, but a Spanish guy. He came in and said, you know, you look. He said, you have to be admitted. I said, admitted? I said, no, he ain't understand what admitted means. Because I got to work tomorrow to this Thursday, you know. Friday I got barbecue. My customers, they ain't gonna take that. So I said, boy, no, this man admitted. You understand what he said? I said, no, admitted. He went out and called back, went outside to talk to the doctors, I guess. And a friend of mine, her name is Vicky. I can't remember her title now, but she's a nurse. She came in, she sat down on the bed by me. She said, Yogi, and she hold my hand. She said, Yogi, let's just check to see. It could be something different, you know. I said, boy. I said, okay. And that's how I was admitted. And that's from Friday to the Thursday.
So you spent a week?
A week, just to making sure, check the blood tests and stuff like that. But what Dr. Wilkinson told me, that boil was like a iceberg. You know, iceberg?
The start of things.
Yeah, you see the top, but the bottom is, can't see the base. And it was already infected in my foot, so like, and that was it. And
so you were tested, I guess, at the hospital, and you had sugar levels, and they were not looking so good.
They wasn't looking that bad either. Because remember, as I told you, I used to test and check my sugar and exercise in the morning and do my stuff.
After you got that first diagnosis?
Yes. So it wasn't that bad. It was, I think, it was.
You're not getting any 400 and something?
No. It was too little bit. So, you know, it wasn't that bad.
But too little bit is not good either.
No. Yeah, I know now. I know now.
So that was your experience. But you say your eating was pretty decent by that time. You had improved a bit.
Ish.
Yeah. And the drinking, was that still in the picture?
Pumping hard, yeah.
All right. So that really, you didn't make any major changes?
No major change.
And the exercise hadn't really stepped up significantly?
No. I was an athlete growing up.
In school?
Played for K-on football, played K-on basketball. But, you know, when you get older and you get kids, first child born, you know, just lay back and you just, you know, you cut back on other stuff, you know, that's all I could say.
Well, I think as we approach the 9 o'clock hour, and we may have to take a break for station identification and some messages which ZIZ may want to broadcast to the general public. But when we come back, we will continue our discussion on diabetes on this World Diabetes Day. And we have a number of members of the St. Kitts Diabetes Association in our audience. And no doubt there will be bits and pieces of information in relation to some of the activities taking place for World Diabetes Day, this being one of the activities, of course. And we will give the details as to what, when, where, and why for the rest of this week. So we'll be right back after this word from your station.
Okay, class. If you follow this algebraic expression, you must get it though. What kind of unruly class this year? What is? What going on here? How are you? Hello? Look, young lady, the choice is always yours. Okay? Meet Tom and Sarah. Meet Ben and Jerry. Sarah lives with Tom, and Ben lives with Jerry. Tom and Sarah are sexually active, and so are Ben and Jerry. But Ben and Jerry always practice safe sex, unlike Tom and Sarah. You decide, which couple is protected?
Okay, welcome back to Healthwise, special edition for today, World Diabetes Day, 14th of November, celebrated the world all over. St. Kitts Diabetes Association being a member of the International Diabetes Federation, and we too have our list of activities taking place here. Among them, we had our church service yesterday morning at the St. George's Anglican Church. We also visited high schools and spoke to the children to give them an idea as to what this diabetes is all about and what they can do to lessen the fall if they were to be diagnosed, and ultimately to make necessary changes in their approach to life, that is to say, exercise-wise and eating-wise. We will also later in the week, we'll visit a school where we will do some screening, namely the Sadler Secondary School, and we will also have a symposium on Thursday evening for high school students, and this will be done virtually. We will interact with those students, we'll be presenting bits and pieces of information, and we'll be having little quizzes, after which they can win prizes if they successfully answer some of these questions. Friday morning, we'll be downtown in the square, screening all and sundry. Anyone who's willing and able and wishing to know their status and their state of affairs can come and join us in Independence Square, and we'll be there from 8 a.m. until 12 noon, not only testing blood sugars, but we'll be also doing blood pressures, we'll be doing weight and height. We will also have information pamphlets given out so that people can take something home and update themselves, read a bit, and become more knowledgeable. Because as my good friend Yogi said, information is what will cause you to make a change in how you approach life. Now, we have Nurse Nydia with us. Nurse Nydia sits at the hospital on a daily basis, and I'm sure she sometimes wonders what are those people doing downtown and at home, because she deals with cases, primarily those who are with kidney issues. the chronic kidney disease clinic at the hospital. You know, I heard some numbers, they're sort of startling to me, but I will leave it up to Nurse Nydia, Sister Nydia, to give us an idea as to what do the numbers look like of persons attending the chronic kidney disease clinic. Are we looking at 5 to 10 persons, or are we looking at above 100? Because the second option obviously would be somewhat frightening. So Nurse Nydia, what is it like?
Well, I must say currently we have roughly 173 persons that attend the outpatients department nephro clinic, that's the chronic kidney disease clinic, on Thursdays.
173?
73.
And a significant number of those are diabetic?
Diabetic, most of them are diabetic, and hypertensive as well.
When you interact with them, what are you getting from them? Do they seem concerned? Are they aware as to the seriousness of the problem? Or as far as they're concerned, they come to just get rid of something like a cold? What's the mood?
Well, under my observation, I looked at it in the age criteria. The most elder patients are more concerned about their health within their future. When we have those around 40s and the 50s, I think the lifestyle is hard to change. So you'll have those on the negative side.
But in terms of how serious they're taking their diagnosis, do you think that the majority are taking it serious? And after interaction at the clinic for chronic kidney disease, I suspect you talk to them and they're aware of the fact that it can get worse.
Yes.
And they can end up on the artificial kidney up the road.
Yes.
You know,
yes.
but are you seeing them making the changes? Are you comfortable that they leave their knowledgeable that they have to make some changes? Do you see them? Are they saying anything along that line?
Well, over the time, I would not say that it's anything that anyone would be able to do at a prompt timing when such thing come against them like that. But over the time of teaching and interacting with the clients, they begin to change and make the effort to consider the seriousness of the condition and either to make a change in order to even live longer, because they begin to question that, exactly how long they'll be able to live with such chronic condition and so forth. And that what makes them eventually begin to move in a more positive way.
And I'm sure what can be hurtful to you, you've been there for a while now,
yes.
and you've seen some come and go,
yes.
and some who unfortunately didn't make it after a
Yes.
while. And that
Yes.
can no doubt be a hurtful phenomenon to observe.
Yes.
Some of you would have probably even gotten close enough to them to be, they're free of friends. And then you see them go steadily downhill, perhaps not because of the lack of information, but because of what I would refer to as the unwillingness to make those changes.
Yes, that's true.
Yep. The St. Kitts Diabetes Association, some time ago, we came up with an acronym called TEAM. And we contend vociferously, if I can use the English language at my disposal, that to be able to successfully manage diabetes, you have to do 4 things, and all 4. Not one of the 4, 3 of the 4, 2 of the 4. We contend that you have to test regularly.
Yes.
We contend that you have to exercise frequently. We contend that you have to eat right. And we contend that the medication that is prescribed by a doctor, you should follow it in a disciplined fashion. Dr. Lawrence, that is the acronym. That is our acronym, but
That's not a word. TEEM.
T.E.E.M.
What did you do with the A?
What are your thoughts? Because we find that when we examine the lives of some of the diabetics who end up with problems, and we juxtapose their life against the acronym, something is not being followed.
Yeah.
What's your experience?
Well, it's very hard for some, I think. The whole concept with team is that it requires discipline, and that's sometimes hard to find.
Yeah.
Not only discipline, but sometimes some money for your talk testing, and you're talking then about accessing the clinic regularly, if that is available to you. If not, like if your job doesn't allow you to get to the clinic in the opening hours, then you have to invest in your own machine, and the strips cost money. So the T can be hard to achieve sometimes.
Yes.
The exercise, we definitely have to have that internal drive to do it. Many of us would have the great intentions at the beginning of the year. We're going to invest in shoes, and we're going to, you get the gear, and it's hard to. So it does require the discipline, I think, and sometimes even money to achieve the team, that approach, which is without a doubt the way to go. I think what helps with getting to that area of team without an E is if you have support. So if you have family members, or if you are joined a diabetes association where you can get support. Nothing like interacting with people who doing it the same as you. One of my good friends who just messaged me asking what's the end result of Yogi's foot story. She has diabetes for over 50 years, and she is ready and able always to assist others who might be new to the diabetes game. And because sometimes it's just to know that somebody is with you as you do this journey. Okay, let's test together, let's go exercise together, let's, what was the other E? Eat. But sometimes that costs money too. But yes, I think it's discipline and often encouragement and even money to achieve it. But being able to check those four things, it masters the disease. You get to master, you get to understand, you get to know how to be able to go through without any of the complications happening. But it does take some discipline.
You see, this St. Kitts Diabetes Association really came about for one prime reason, to be a support group to persons living with diabetes. Because as you correctly said, it's difficult to do this alone, in isolation.
And then there was even a time when diabetes was thought to be a disease to hush, to don't let people know I have diabetes. So when you go out for lunch, the office goes out for lunch, I'm going to put what everybody else is putting on their plates, such that I don't stand out as being clearly the person with diabetes, because I don't have the ice cream and I don't have. So sometimes it was even taboo at some point and all to own that you have diabetes.
But like I said, as a support group, it is our hope, is our intention that we can create an environment whereby persons can come to the association when we get a home, because it is still our hope that one day we will have a place from which we can operate and people can come and get information, even interact with other persons living with diabetes.
Correct.
Because sometimes you don't know who has it, and you think that you're the only one, you're in isolation. But when you meet Tom, Dick, Harry, Mary, and Sue, and collectively you can work together, you can exercise together, you can exchange ideas. Because you may have a particular plan of action which works well, and you give that plan to others, and it does work like that in many of the diabetes associations with which I interact as a member of our diabetes association. So Yogi, where would you think that you really fell down that caused problems to get worse over time? Where you think you might have slipped up? You were not willing to give up, you say, the drinks, or
no, drinks. Give up the drinks easy, but where did I fall?
The what?
I said, where you asked me, where did I fall?
We think you might have, not followed all of the rules, all of the recommendations, all of the suggestions, You know, I know sometimes for men, when men are hanging out, you know, it's difficult to say no. When rounds start buying, you know, the number of rounds is equal to the number of men in the group. So if a 10-man group is liming, that means 10 rounds, 10 beers, or 10 shots of whatever it is.
Give me goosebumps, man.
Exactly. And some of the guys afraid to say no because they say, he's a pure fella, man. You know, he's soft.
No. I was never, you can't bully me. I was never, never peer pressure. I went to camp primary school and we don't really, that no thing. But, Mr. O'Loughlin, let's get deep then. I lost a son. My firstborn to the gang violence.
Okay.
And no doubt.
Impacted you.
Impacted, you need a higher word for that.
Devastated.
So, I just felt like, oh man, I don't care. And I have a next son, you know. And I love my son, I love, but you know, like, that hurt, you know, losing a child. I don't think nobody would.
How long would that have been?
6 years ago. 6 years ago. 7th of this month.
7th of November.
6 years exactly. And that was where I think in that 6 years, yeah man, I just didn't care. Straight up.
Yeah, that's a major stressor, obviously, and that could have thrown you off.
I think counseling might have helped. You know, mature. I want to counseling. I'm good. You kind of put it to the back of your head, or, you know, don't know where I put it, but that's something that, you know, it was devastating. And I think, and it's amazing I'm talking about this here on national television. I never tell nobody this before.
Yeah, we certainly appreciate it because it will help to open their eyes. That
was where I think I fell.
What I should mention at this time, if there's anyone who would like to follow us on Facebook, you have facebook.com/ZIZ Online. You also have YouTube with the ZIZ Online location, and you can go there and you can add some comments. You can ask questions, you can make suggestions or recommendations for any aspect of the program, whether it would be the St. Kitts Diabetes Association and what we can do more, or if you have the willingness to come on board and join us and help us, you know, as we strive to make the life of persons living with diabetes a little easier. We, as a support group, we try to agitate for certain things. We would love to have cheaper strips. We would love to have access to testing equipment. We would love to have access to the needles, because believe it or not, I think I see persons going to the clinics and getting insulin, but no needles. And the needles do have a cost attached to it, as Dr. Lawrence says. The monies do add up. And because this is an illness, this is a condition that will be with you for an extended period of time. I never say till the end, because science is developing and who knows. But it's a condition that will be with us for an extended period of time. And so with a Diabetes Association actively getting involved in the life of persons living with diabetes, and with more hands on deck, with many persons coming on board, we certainly think that we can make it a little easier. One of the things that was done at the onset of this present executive was to approach the business sector and beg, plead, beseech, ask them for help in the form of discounts on healthy foods. Discounts on healthy foods. And what we would have had to have done from our side was to produce ID cards for persons living with diabetes, which they use at these business places to access. So if the first place to come on board was CNC Foods, I think that was the name of the business. Am I right or am I right? You know, that was the first business to come on board. And the idea was to be able to go in with your ID card and you can get your broccoli and your tomatoes and so on cheaper, but the cakes and so on, of course, you couldn't hide them underneath because that was not subject to those discounts. we hope to expand on that when we get a place from which we can operate, because that is one of the challenges we're facing. So, Dr. Lawrence, what are your thoughts in relation to what else can a support group like a Diabetes Association do? Before we get into treatment, what are your thoughts in that area?
Yeah, so I like the idea of support for sure, and like organized exercise sessions. I think it'll be easier to not to try to touch all of the 4 in team, but to tackle one to the best that you can. Exercise where we talk about, okay, we're going starting at 5 o'clock and we're going so on, and make it as inclusive as possible, because you don't need to spend much to start to go walking on the road or go to a play field or go to a community center, and I know there are people that we can exercise gurus, if you will, that we have several in the areas in the communities. So Vance does one day, Vince does another day, and so on. Maybe get somebody to do karate or taekwondo. Yeah, so I think, and that's all volunteer work, and therefore not asking one person to do it all, but taekwondo is on Tuesdays and kickboxing is on Fridays, and using a community center that we should be able to get use of. I think at least to tackle the first E, right, in the acronym, I think that would be helpful. Because I agree with Yogi that exercise to me, so if a patient of mine comes in, they know one of the questions I'm going to ask is, how is the exercise going? They know I'm going to ask that every single time. Some say, okay, don't even ask me that now, because they know. So I agree with Yogi that exercise is so critical to helping to control these chronic non-communicable diseases like diabetes.
Yes,
I think that's definitely one of the things we can do.
Yes, Yogi, in the later stages, I mean, you had challenges, I guess, in terms of getting the proper foods and so on. Was anything changed in relation to your eating habits? Anything changed after you realized that big things are happening? Were you able to make the necessary changes and be disciplined about it? And your medication, of course.
Yes, and when I was hospitalized is when I got serious. I changed, I just make a complete change. Change, because as far as I'm concerned, I nearly died. And I don't want to die. So I had to change. I changed. Saturday, I went by coats. I don't have any money, but I bought a treadmill because I can't walk anywhere. So I could walk in my house. So I bought a treadmill on Saturday. They didn't bring it yet, but I bought a treadmill on Saturday. Because right now, I am a professional diabetic. Because I am not playing. I don't want to die, Mr. O'Loughlin. I love life. So I'm going to keep going forward.
I like that spirit, because, one person in conversation with them said that nobody came from over there and said over there is sweet.
Yeah. Oh.
So they like it here and they would like to stay as long as possible. Yep.
And like the doc said, support.
Mm-hmm.
I have great support. My family, friends, I have a support. The needles I get from the States, so I have that. And the exercise I'm going to keep doing. Eating, I'm trying, because food's so expensive, but we still have to try to eat properly.
Been there before, or is there, and can guide. The same my friend that I just mentioned. She has helped so many people who didn't appreciate the importance of testing to get an idea of what this food does to your sugar versus this other food, so then I know what I can have or what I can't have. But somebody had to mentor her, and so she mentors others. So that's a nice way to help.
Yeah, those are the sort of people we would like to have in the Sengis Diabetes Association, because that's the whole idea, supporting those who cannot deal with it by themselves. I think as it's 9:25, we have to take a little break for station identification once more. But when we come back, we're going to look at some treatment options. We're going to look at some of the new things on the market, the pumps and so on, which we hear about, and the costs associated with those. You know, no doubt out of the range of most and many, but it's still nice to mention what's out there. And we will continue our discussion. We will entertain any comments, questions from our studio audience, because they are part of the act tonight. And we certainly would like to hear from them, just in case they have anything to put forward to us. So we'll be right back after this break from our program.
Okay, class. If you follow this algebraic expression, you must get it though. What kind of unruly class this year? What is? What's going on here? Hello. Look, young lady, the choice is always yours. Okay? Meet Tom and Sarah. Meet Ben and Jerry. Sarah lives with Tom, and Ben lives with Jerry. Tom and Sarah are sexually active, and so are Ben and Jerry. But Ben and Jerry always practice safe sex, unlike Tom and Sarah. You decide, which couple is protected?
Welcome back to Health-Wise with our special edition for today, World Diabetes Day, 14th day of November, celebrated the length and breadth of our globe. 191 countries containing 240 diabetes associations. Today they are celebrating, they are commemorating and standing in solidarity with persons living with diabetes. That number exceeding 537 million, as was released in the 2021 Atlas published by the International Diabetes Federation. We would like to entertain some comments, questions from our studio audience. So at this time, we would pass the microphone to the first person, one of the students from the CFBC, and please go ahead with your question. Good evening.
I know you talked about men being reluctant to getting tested for diabetes, but I'm also here about women being at a higher risk for diabetes. Is that so?
You're speaking about women being at a higher risk?
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't exactly say that women are at a higher risk. I think the problem here is that men really and truly tend to run away from the diagnosis. But from the statistics that the Sengis Diabetes Association has been able to access, we've seen pretty close in terms of the ratio of females and males when it comes to diabetes. There might be specific conditions that might put them at risk, especially during pregnancy, when you have the gestational diabetes appearing in some persons. But I wouldn't say women are at any higher risk. I don't know if you want to add to that, Dr. Lawrence?
True. As you say, with pregnancy, one of the risks for we hadn't said the three main types of diabetes, but there's type 1, type 2, and gestational. One of the reasons for type 2 is if they become overweight and have increased fat cells, which make the insulin not work as well. So we may see we females might have more of the fat as we should, given our our makeup. But yes, I wouldn't expect. I might expect that to translate into an increased number of women being diabetic, but if the statistics tell us no, then no, we're not. I don't think so. Otherwise.
Okay, thank you. And another comment, another question. We have.
Good night.
Good night.
Dr. Lawrence, I know you made mention that women have, yeast infection. In relation to men, what type of infection is it the same thing? And before you answer, I would like to add to Dr. O'Loughlin's team that we should make it teamwork. And where you have the test regularly, exercise as often as possible, eat the correct food, and take medication regularly, I would like to add there, wear the correct shoes, do not overindulge in drinking or eating, that's the work part, and the regular doctor visit, because we tend to have persons who don't do regular doctor visit at all, and be knowledgeable about your disease. So in the team, I would like to add work to that, and you use those acronyms so that our patients are more knowledgeable and they would be able to work with the doctor and the nurses, not just at the health center, but also at the hospitals that they visit.
Yeah, thanks much for that, useful contribution. Anyone else with any comments, questions?
Good night, all. Dr. Lawrence mentioned the formula A1C. Can you explain what is A1C?
Sure. Yes, no problem. So first off, you're asking me about if there are any equivalent male infections as we see the women with the vaginal yeast attacks. I don't think so. I'm not aware of it. They would have the increased risk for urinary tract infections, but women have that too, and increased risk of skin infections, but women have that too. So I'm not aware of a specific male infective process as we have the female vaginal yeast. And as the HbA1c, so the HB stands for hemoglobin, which is the red blood cell mainly. So the red blood cell lives for 120 days, and it can get blood sugar attached to it. So it is really how much blood sugar is attached to the red blood cell that lives for 120 days. So that's why you can actually get an idea of 120 days management or what your blood sugar can be, because the red blood cell has blood sugar attached to it. So that's where hemoglobin A1c, it actually stands for glycosylated hemoglobin, hemoglobin with sugar attached. And if there's, because the red blood cell lives for 120 days, we can really see 120 days amount of sugar in the person's bloodstream. So it's much nicer way to get an idea of blood sugar management, how the person is living, how they're eating, how they're exercising, how they're monitoring their blood sugar or managing with their eating. I said that already. But yeah, it's glycosylated hemoglobin, which lasts for 120 days.
And I must admit that is a very helpful test that can catch lots of the cheaters, as Dr. Lawrence said.
There was a time when I didn't include it in an annual check, but I had to start. It's critical. That is because not everybody has symptoms. So sometimes it's only when you do the A1C that you realize that they're diabetic indeed.
Every time we have a topic to discuss, you always have little anecdotes that you can add, little jokey things you can add. And I know this particular situation with this particular friend of mine. He was not my patient, but he was just a friend. And he had been diagnosed as being diabetic. He lived with his family, a large family, and his family was always on his back. Boy, you shouldn't be touching that. But he ate liberally everything. And when he was going to his doctor to have his finger pricked, he would have lettuce the night before and water. And the next morning he would go and he would have what he would consider to be a decent sugar score, and he would go back home and say, the doctor said, you're doing good. Because he was not doing the things the night before that could have caused his blood sugar to be higher than normal. So a secret message was sent to the doctor, to the A1C. And then is when the tables turned and it was found out that he was actually cheating. So that's a really important test. And if you were to taking out an insurance right now, the insurance companies, they're asking for the A1C. They're relying heavily on knowing your diabetes status with the use of the A1C test.
Okay. At what stage do one check for the A1C?
No, it's something that you do routinely. If you're a diabetic, you should be doing your A1C 2 to 3 times per year as a diabetic to follow, to see how you're progressing. And that is what we recommend. The only problem is that the cost, because it runs close to $100 for the test. Yes, and well, you can do it at the hospital, of course, through the clinics, and when I worked at the clinics, in order to accommodate the hundreds of persons suffering with diabetes, they did not do it 2 to 3 times per year, just to make sure everybody had access to it. So you tend to get it once or twice per year at the government clinics. But in an ideal situation, once you can afford to pay for it privately, you can have it accessed, at the various laboratories in St. Kitts, and those we have a number of.
So if one do not know he or she has diabetes, at what stage, how would they be knowledgeable of being diabetic? Is it by having your annual medical check, or you feel lazy or sleepy?
Don't wait for the laziness and the feeling sleepy. When you go, as Dr. Lawrence said earlier, when you go for your checks, your tests, that test will be inside there.
Your family history. So if there's a family history of diabetes, we know some types are genetic driven and you can inherit the risk for becoming diabetes, for becoming diabetic. So sometimes the family history, your lifestyle that might say, oh, you don't exercise at all and you see the weight gain, then the weight loss, so stuff like that. But if you don't have the family history, once a year is good enough. If you are diabetic, at least twice a year, it should be done, at least. So it depends. The answer to the frequency is it depends. It really should be individualized decisions made.
And of course, if you just want to know, there's nothing wrong. If you just want to know, it's accessible. You go to whoever healthcare provider and say, I want an A1C, because there's some people, they read a lot and they're up to date and they demand, I want to know my A1C.
Dr. Lawrence, diabetics tend to lose weight. I've been a diabetic since I'm 42.
That's last year. That's last year. You said since you're 42. I was only joking and saying that's from last year then.
No, that's nearly 20 years. I 63.
Okay.
Yeah, so diabetes and weight loss is real, but it's particularly when you're uncontrolled. So when you're not controlled, when the blood sugar is not controlled. So the diabetes, as we said, is you're not producing enough insulin, or you're not producing any insulin. You just don't have the vehicle to move the sugar from the bloodstream into the organs that need it. So what the body will do is realize, okay, and especially the brain, because sugar is the main fuel, glucose is the main fuel for brain, the body will realize, I'm not getting the sugar I need in the organs to work. So it will actually direct the breakdown of muscle to convert that to sugar so that you can get the sugar, because you're not having insulin to bring it out of the bloodstream. So a person who has diabetes, who has not lost weight, once they start doing the proper thing, it means that they're being well managed. So their blood sugar is normal, so they don't need to break down muscle, they don't need to, it's actually a check mark that if you haven't lost weight, I think I would be wondering if it is that your blood sugar control is good. Because you lose weight when your sugar is uncontrolled.
Okay, so what I'd like to mention at this time is some of the other activities associated with our program for this week. And we would be having our downtown screening on Friday in the square from 8 until 12. And then the grand finale is the Walk for Diabetes on Saturday morning, starting at the War Memorial at 5:30 a.m. 5:30 a.m. at the War Memorial. We have shirts available, nice shirts, and if I can have one of the shirts to demonstrate, we can definitely. Oh, yeah, we have nice shirts available for the walk, and they have. You can call our good secretary, Miss Adora Warner, Mrs. Adora Warner, at 664-2622. That is 664-2622, and you can collect your shirt. 40 Eastern Caribbean dollars. That's not a large sum, and you also, with that contribution to the continued work of the Diabetes Association, you will have access to a healthy snack at the end and a bottle of water. We are also raffling. We are also having some raffles taking place during the Independence Square exercise and at the walk at the War Memorial, where you can win very interesting prizes. So take advantage and help to support the work of the Diabetes Association, because our work will go on. And to be able to carry on this work, especially in the realm of testing, screening, we have to be well equipped. So we use this the funding we get from exercises of this nature, we put it right back into our screening activities. We want to say a big thank you and a big shout out to National Bank. As you can see, the logo is right there, National Bank. They are the main sponsors of the walk and the shirts that go along with the walk, and we certainly appreciate it very much from the bottom of our heart. They came on board last year for the very first time, and they were pleased with the response. I must admit, when the shirts came last year, people came and took them quickly. We were only left with the extreme sizes, and we were glad, even though we were sorry we didn't get them sold, but we were glad we didn't find people to fit those extreme sizes, because we know that would have indicated the presence of persons at high risk for a multiplicity of diseases. So this year, our shirts just arrived on Friday, and the people are coming and asking and taking and buying. And so once you call 664-2622, that is Mrs. Adora Warner, our secretary, and she'll be able to set you up with the shirt and the size of your choice, so that on Saturday morning at 5:30 a.m. at the War Memorial, you can join us as we journey east along the Bay Road up to the Central Bank roundabout and back. Pretty quick walk. It will take most people approximately 1 hour. So you'll still be able to get home and continue your regular Saturday chores. Those who would like to return to sleep, so be it. Now let's get back to our discussion. Dr. Lawrence, once you have a condition, once you have dealt with the symptoms, once you have made your diagnosis with the testing, we now come to treatment. We have to treat this condition, because the person who came to you, they came not just to hear what they got, but what to do with it. So what treatment options are there for persons with diabetes?
Right. So for the type 1 diabetes, which is the absolute lack of insulin, the only option is insulin. You're not producing it anymore. Your pancreas shut down. No more insulin available. That's type 1. So now the only option is insulin. And there are several different types of insulin available, but your only option is insulin. Then there's the type 2 diabetes, which is the majority of the world, where you're producing insulin, but the amount of insulin being made is not effective to move the blood out, the sugar from the bloodstream. There is one of the oldest drugs in the world in the world and the realm of diabetes, metformin, which is very much in favor throughout the world. There is other types, other tablets, sulfonylureas, and so. Then we have newer drugs available to us too, which are not too cheap. So it's either insulin or tablets by mouth. I was asking you if you knew about this once a week injection, which is not insulin, called Ozempic.
Yes, I see it advertised.
Yeah, so that is an option for type 2 diabetes. It triggers the pancreas to produce more insulin. So you do have the insulin itself, tablets by mouth, the depot version of the medication to tell the pancreas to produce more insulin, all in an effort to move the sugar from the bloodstream such that it doesn't stay there and cause organ damage.
And you know, we have technology developing in all aspects of life and in the treatment of diabetes, where you have this continuous glucose monitors that can be attached to the arm, and then you can have an insulin pump attached to your abdomen.
Yeah.
You know, with the total cost together from my last interaction with a North American visitor, told me that he's looking at about $20,000 US.
Yeah.
And obviously that is not what we are trying to promote here in the St. Diabetes Association. You know, unless you were to have an insurance, that cost is ridiculous. Not only that, there's one gentleman who visited St. Kitts and he had his insulin pump on and he forgot and took a dive in the nice warm water, and that was the end of it.
Yeah.
And when I asked him how much, he said that's 20,000 US, but he'll get some assistance from his Medicare and Medicaid and those things.
Yeah.
We are happy to be able to have regular insulin available at our clinics. The government health centers have always, since my time, have always been having in stock. The government of all of the days have made sure that they've always had the appropriate basic supplies of insulins and all of the different tablets. So I'm not of the opinion that there's any problem with the supply and the availability of treatment modalities. The hope is that where we can have improvement, and the Diabetes Association is aggressively pursuing that with the suggestions, the recommendations, is that you can have diabetic persons accessing testing materials at the clinics. In some of my sister organizations in the Caribbean in diabetes associations, they can access testing strips and testing glucometers in the equivalent of their government clinics.
Yep.
We would love to get to that stage. They also can access
So you're saying
syringes.
not going to the clinic to be tested, but have their
Exactly,
the meter at home.
have their meters at home, and they can access, for example, in Antigua, the insulin-dependent diabetics get 100 strips.
Yeah.
You know, if they want more, they pay for more, but they get 100 strips per month. And then non-insulin dependent diabetics, those on metformin only, they access 50 and they pay for more. We would love to get to that stage because, as you correctly said, the strips, the cost is quite prohibitive for many persons who already are challenged with eating correctly, already challenged with being able to just survive and pay their bills. So that is one of our, hopes, one of our aspirations as an association, that we can continue to assist diabetics with supplies. Nurse Nydia, when you interact with the patients from the kidney clinic, you get those complaints in relation to costs of things and supplies and so on? You get those problems being dropped on your shoulder in your lap?
Yes, that's one of the biggest concern about many of the patients that come to the clinic. mostly worry about the continuous care where they're at home and not being able to have the different gadgets that they need to check their blood pressure, even the glucose as well.
You by chance happen to have any numbers for our dialysis patients? Do you have any idea how many persons might be on dialysis at this point in time?
Roughly around 32, to be exact, 32.
And
that's hemodialysis.
Hemodialysis, and I understand that there's a significant number of those who are diabetic. I understand, is my understanding.
Yes. Majority.
So that is the stage which, can you give us some insight? What is dialysis, Dr. Lawrence? What is that really all about? what is it?
Yeah, dialysis is the procedure where there's a machine, a dialysis machine that does the job the kidneys were to do, but the kidneys have been attacked by diabetes or by high blood pressure or by lupus, so they've just stopped doing their job. They can't do it anymore. So literally, it's actually sound like it should be a question for Nurse Nydia, but literally, the blood, if certainly with hemodialysis, they take the blood. You literally get your blood taken out your body, cleaned, is not too correct to say, but filtered, all the toxins that the kidneys should have been removing. The machine does it for you, and then sends you get the blood set back into your body, now with the toxins removed. Right?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. So what we've been doing so far is starting to look at some of the complications. We've just looked at the kidney and what can happen with the kidney and the needs of a person who, after sustaining, significant damage to the kidneys, such that they are deemed to be in chronic renal failure, some persons would end up on dialysis. Let's move down to the foot. What's really happening there? Why some persons end up with an amputation? What could be happening in that particular area?
Yeah. So it's basically the same disease process. Diabetes attacks small blood vessels. So the small blood vessels feed in the kidney, small blood vessels feeding the heart, small blood vessels feeding the limbs. So diabetes literally makes those vessels smaller, and gone. So then you're talking about the absence of blood supply. Those really, really, really small blood vessels feeding the tips of the toes, and the small blood vessels that feed the nerves, so that you can feel. So the classic setup for a person with diabetes ending up with an amputation is that those blood vessels made the nerves stop working well. So you get a bite, or you boot up your foot, and you didn't appreciate that it happened because you stopped feeling. So you didn't see also because the diabetes affected your eyes, so you can't see that well so far down to your feet. So you didn't know that there was some injury. The blood supply is also compromised because of the same blood vessel disease. So you have an injury that you didn't feel, that is not allowed to heal well because you're not getting the blood supply as well. So you go from normal skin to injured skin to infected skin. Don't feel any of that, and as Yogi is saying, I was told all he saw was the little pustule or but beneath a whole lot of infection was going on that he couldn't feel because he has lost the nerve supply to be able to appreciate that this was happening. So ultimately then we'd get dead tissue, not getting the blood to work, infected, can't heal. Organism, the bacteria is in the skin, has lots to work on to use up and chew and devour, and you don't feel a thing, and it's just going through underneath until now you have too much dead tissue, too much dead skin, and it's now a source for infection to spread to the bloodstream and then go to the rest of your body. So now that is a limb that can challenge their life. And so the digit has to go, or maybe several toes have to go, or maybe the whole foot has to go, just because there's so much infection now and tissue dying, or tissue dead and dying, and now it's a threat to the whole system.
So since we're in the area of complications, perhaps you can just say a few quick words before we take our last break for station identification. You can say a few quick words on the relationship of the heart, the eyes, and the brain in relation to complications sustained as a result of poorly controlled diabetes. Heart, brain.
It's all the same. It's called microvascular. So very, very, very small vessels are being taken out. The blood sugar allows for the blood vessels to get narrower and narrower. So the little blood vessels feeding the bit of the heart, or the blood vessels in the back of the eye, which we use to process light and images to be able to see. The little blood vessels feeding the kidneys. So literally is you just lose this blood supply from the little blood vessels being under attack and narrowed.
Okay, so we're going to take our last break for station identification, and when we come back, we're going to be rounding up, we're going to be closing down, but we're going to be leaving some very important messages from the St. Kitts Diabetes Association, and it is our hope that those persons who are listening, who are watching, and who would like to come on board and assist with the work of the St. Kitts Diabetes Association, with the volunteer work, the volunteer activity of the St. Kitts Diabetes Association, you're certainly welcome. We'd love to have you on board. More hands makes the work much lighter. So at this stage, we'll take our last break for station identification, and we will be right back.
Okay, class. If you follow this algebraic expression, you must get it though. What kind of unruly class this year? What is? What going on here? How are these? Hello. Look, young lady, the choice is always yours. Okay? Meet Tom and Sarah. Meet Ben and Jerry. Sarah lives with Tom, and Ben lives with Jerry. Tom and Sarah are sexually active, and so are Ben and Jerry. But Ben and Jerry always practice safe sex, unlike Tom and Sarah. You decide, which couple is protected?
Okay, welcome back to the final segment of Healthwise. Special edition for today, the 14th of November, celebrated the world over as World Diabetes Day. Today, we focus our attention on the plight of persons living with diabetes. The numbers published by the International Diabetes Federation, 537 million in the last atlas, and this number is expected to explode to 678 million by 2045. That's the expectation of the International Diabetes Federation. Remember, the St. Kitts Diabetes Association, our activities taking place for the rest of the week. Thursday, we go to the Sadler's Secondary School. Thursday evening, we entertain students online, virtually. Friday morning, we will be in Independence Square testing all and sundry. Anyone who would like to get their blood sugars tested, their blood pressure, the height and weight, you can come there anytime between 8 and 12, and we certainly would accommodate. And on Saturday morning, please come and join us as we walk in support of persons living with diabetes. 5:30 a.m., War Memorial, starting point and end point. Get your shirts. Call 664-2622, and you can certainly collect your shirts and have access to a healthy snack certainly would not be ice cream and cake. I can guarantee you that. And you would have water with that snack. So at this point, we're going to pass the mic around and have the final comments, starting with Dr. Lawrence.
So I just like to encourage us all to know our numbers. It is even more so important if you have a family history of diabetes. I know sometimes we like to shy away from reality, but know your numbers, get your fasting sugar, get the A1C in particular.
Nurse Nydia.
And coming from my observation at the hospital, at the clinic, at our patients, I would also like to see more of the family being supportive in respect to their patients at home, because most of the time in actually going to a situation like that, it takes a lot for oneself to really comprehend and to move forward in life. And being as a nurse and observing this, it hurts at times to see that as people begin to age, they are struggling on their own. And to see that we're raised in such a small society, I believe that family members should supposed to be more involved in the lives of their families as well. And going forward as well, the health center, I would like to have everyone, as they could think clearly that the health centers are available, and not because you're not presented with anything, it is wise to always have a checkup and see what is going on.
Okay, thank you. And Yogi, my boy.
Yes, I want to say a big shout out to Dr. Woodley and Nurse Paula Francis and Underwood and all the nurses in the surgical ward. You know, it's been a while, and you know, I really respect you guys. And I just want to say to my counterparts, you know, my friends, family, younger guys in the community, and St. Kitts on a whole, get tested, exercise if it's in your family, it's possibly in you already. So you have to get started now and get down to it.
Okay, thank you. And of course, from me, as a member of the St. Kitts Diabetes Association, the public relations officer, I am certainly very appreciative of the contribution made tonight by our panelists. We've heard the practical experiences of Yogi. We've heard the work experiences of Sister Nydia and Dr. Caroline. And we of the St. Kitts Diabetes Association would like to carry on our efforts in supporting persons living with diabetes, and we would like to have many more persons on board with us. So with that said and done, look for us in the square on Friday. You can join. Come with us on Saturday, walking along the Bay Road. We're not going to be going up any hills and down in any valleys to endanger lives and livelihoods. We're going to be taking a nice calm walk along the flat Bay Road up to the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank roundabout and back, comfortable, you know, achievable and easily by most, if not all. So thanks again for listening and viewing, and don't forget, we intend to take the die out of diabetes.